What up, party people? So, I know it's been a while since I filmed with this in my room, and it looks a little different because I got this from Five Below. I like the poster, so I got it. Anyways, this is going to be a video about some of my favorite teams from the season I watched of The Amazing Race. It's a show where usually 11 teams race around the world for $1 million, but you gotta be fast with it because if you're the last team to check in, you're gonna get eliminated. But there's also a possibility that you won't because it might be a non-elimination leg. Usually that's not the case, but sometimes that does happen. So I'm gonna tell you some of my favorite teams that have competed on the Amazing Race. There are gonna be spoilers. Okay? There's gonna be spoilers obviously, so just be aware. Alright? So let's start off with season 1. It's a season I've seen. I haven't seen all the seasons, okay? Mainly not the older ones, but I've seen the first ever season because, well, who couldn't? Like most people who are attached to some shows have most likely seen the first season of it. So my favorite team from that season is Kevin and Drew. They're hilarious. They're, like I said, hilarious. They're funny. They're cool. And they're just really likable underdogs. Like you look at them and you're like, these guys don't stand a chance. These guys, they're not ever gonna get first or nothing. And they actually got first place like 3 times, I think. One of them was because of the fast forward. The other 2 times were like legit, and they actually had a decent lead at Final Four until their mishap with the flight put them way at the back, and then they got a devastating fourth place finish, which I remember being so bummed out about because they were such funny, entertaining racers, and they were actually good at the race too. You don't see that nowadays where good racers are, well, entertaining. And they were the definition of it. I mean, hey, Final Four, when there's a final 3 teams, that's not bad at all. That's actually really, really good. And you are known as robbed. But yeah, Kevin and Drew are like some of my all-time favorite characters. They crack good jokes. They have some funny moments from that season. They got first place a bunch of times. There's nothing you can really say bad about them this season at all. Like people like wanted to see them back for the All-Star season, and they got their wish. Haven't seen that season, but I know they're on it, so it's cool. It's cool. Another team from sticking with season 1. Another team I really liked were Team Guido, the first villains of the Amazing Race, and my God, were they good TV! Possibly the best first villains in a reality show I've seen. I mean, Team Guido was snarky and sneaky, lying around about, I think, bus times. It's been a while since I've seen the season. Keep that in mind. I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but I remember Team Guido was a problem. And one of the mistakes they made was they stood at a bus station too long. They were gambling, all the marbles in the bag didn't pay off, and they were a long whiles behind. I mean, they literally had no chance of coming back whatsoever. I mean, they were at least 12 hours behind all the teams. The only reason they got to the final 3 was because Kevin and Drew messed up the whole flight stuff. Which I'm still bummed out today because I think Kevin and Drew could have actually given a good run for the money. But this is about Team Guido. I'm talking about Kevin and Drew way too much. But Team Guido, perfect villains for the first season. They were entertaining. They were fun to watch. There was really a lot of people didn't like them because obviously they're villains. Some people don't like villains, but they were good racers, fun racers to watch. And it's just unfortunate what happened to them because they really couldn't recover after the Final Five situation with the bus stop. So it's unfortunate, but I mean, it was their fault for throwing all the marbles in the bag. But they were very, very fun villains that I know are in the All-Star season as well as Kevin and Drew. So I'm looking forward to seeing that season. And we're going to still stick with this season This season actually had a really good cast of season one, and it's probably got the best cast. It's got a better season one cast than Survivor, I think. And we're gonna stick with season one, and we're gonna talk about Frank and Margarita. And they were also fun characters to watch. I mean, they were amazing racers, pun intended, and they were really the only one of the only two teams who really had a chance at the final episode. Team Guido was like 12 hours behind. By the time Team Guido landed, those two, Robin Brennan and Frank and Margarita, crossed the finish line, and they got second place because they weren't racing as well on the final leg as Robin Brennan did. But I remember these guys being funny, entertaining, good characters, good at the race, and a lot of people were bummed out that they never returned. And I'm kind of one of those people, I like them. And I do think if they returned on maybe the All-Star season or Unfinished Business or the second All-Star season or season 31, then I do think that they don't make it as far as they do, but I still do think that they could give good TV. Yeah. Pretty much. I would love to see them return. It's a shame that we haven't yet, but it is what it is, pretty much. And we actually have one more team left for season one, and that is Paul and Amy. Now I know this is kind of an on a curveball since they got what, like, eighth or seventh place, but them two were such messes and forever created the couples are gonna argue stereotypical type of Amazing Race stuff. Those two were funny when they were arguing. They were so disorganized, always getting lost, and the reason why they got out was because they got lost for so long in the desert. And it's just, it's they were good TV. I would just remember they were good TV. They weren't good racers. They were not at all. In fact, they're probably one of my favorites. Not my all-time favorite. We'll get to that later. But I mean, they were great TV, and I like them a lot. I know why they haven't returned, but you know, but them getting lost and bickering was fun for season one. Season one really made the Amazing Race like what it is today, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. There have been also other seasons as well. Now, I haven't seen seasons 2 through 13, so we're going to skip all of that. I have seen season 14, though, and we have a couple teams here as well. First off, Margie and Luke, the standouts for this season for me. I love them so much. I know a lot of people have mixed viewings with them with their feud of Keisha and Jen, but I love them so much. I think it's inspirational, like with Luke not being able to like hear anything, being deaf, and being made fun of a lot, growing up. That on the first leg they got first place. That's inspirational as heck. I think they got first place a lot more times as well, and they actually made final three. And they didn't do so well in that final roadblock where Luke struggled with the surfboards. But I mean, I still really like them. I thought they were really likable. I thought their story was interesting. And I mean, if they would have won the Amazing Race, I think season 14 would have been a, a better season than it already is in my eyes. I think it's quite an underrated season. But Margie and Luke are my favorite team from that season. But we're not done with season 14 yet. We got Mike and Mel. You might know Mike from Survivor, David versus Goliath, but he actually competed on 2 seasons of The Amazing Race before going on Survivor. And it's a shame that people don't really know that because he was really, like, when I saw Mike on Survivor, I was like, no way. Like, this is a guy from one of my favorite teams on The Amazing Race. But not many people knew who he really was, even with his riding career or being on The Amazing Race. So it's a real shame. But I really liked him and Mel and his father. They were just funny, cool, calm, collected guys. They're just really likable and rootable until they got sixth place. And they even got invited back for Unfinished Business because of how cool they were and likable, and a lot of people loved them, just by their bonding and stuff and how wholesome they were. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say about them. And then we got. I'm just gonna brief talk about Keisha and Jen. Great villains for the season. But their whole situation with the bathroom stuff made me cringe and die. So I was like, oh my god, that has to be one of the worst ways to go out. You lost because you had to use the bathroom. Let that sink in. You lost because you had to use the bathroom. But to be honest, I'm happy that did, because the next team we're going to talk about, Jamie and Cara. These two aren't the best people in the world, but oh my god, were they good TV. These two were former NFL cheerleaders who actually had a bond well with Margie and Luke, which was my favorite team. So, I was like, if you like them, I like you. I like you a lot. And Jamie and Cara got a third place out of fourth because Keisha and Jen got last because I think it was Keisha who had to use the bathroom, but they couldn't do the roadblock as fast as Tammy and Victor, and ultimately got second place as a result. But my God, were these two golden TV, man. And I'm happy we got to see them on unfinished business for the time we got to see, because these two, they were gold. They were gold. I really do think that they were like a calmer version and less whinier version of Rachel, but yeah, these two are like the Natalie and Nadia of season 14. But like less mean and less stealing and less strategical, but that was them. It was hilarious. I like them a lot. But we're gonna move on to season 15 now, and there's a couple teams. I think two teams here that I really liked more than the others. And obviously, the first one's going to go to Flight Time at Big Easy, the Globetrotters, man. I'm a basketball fan, as you can tell by that hoop right there. So I really was excited to see them when I first watched. I was like, yo, it's the Harlem Globetrotters running the Amazing Race? What? And they actually did really, really good. They got fourth place. They were funny, entertaining characters as well. And what's bad to say about the Harlem Globetrotters apart from trusting people too much? Sam and Dan, I remember really hoping they lost in the finale after what they did to the Globetrotters in the Final Four, and telling Big Easy the whole code when they agreed to work together on it. I was so upset. I was like, are you kidding me? Because I was really wanting the Globetrotters to win the Amazing Race. And then the whole situation with the water slide and Micah being too scared to go down. Big Easy's like, don't do it. I love the Globetrotters there. And that was so funny. Like Big Easy being like, I wouldn't do it. We could walk down with you. It's hilarious and just great TV. Because knowing that Big Easy would go down there in like a split second and like try to make her not go. But hey, it's the Amazing Race. You don't want to see people cry, but it's $1 million. I mean, and it was an elimination leg. And had Micah gone down there, the Globetrotters would have got 7th instead of 4th. And I would have been so upset because that could have jeopardized their chances returning for 2 future seasons. So, yeah, I'm happy that we got to see them. And the other team we're going to talk about is Zev and Justin, who is probably going to be the earliest boot on this ranking I have of teams that I like. And these two were so unlucky. They shouldn't have even gotten 9th, because they actually arrived at the pit stop first. But I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was Zev who lost his passport on a taxi, and they couldn't check into the pit stop because Phil told them to go get the passport, and they couldn't find the passport in time to where all the teams checked in, so they went back to the passport pit stop and said they couldn't find the passport, and they were ultimately eliminated that way. And that really sucked, and I hated that. I was like, man, I really liked them. They were so cool and entertaining, but we got to see them return again, and a lot of the teams I like did return. It's gonna change more so down the line, but I really like those two. I'm happy we got to see their second chance. We'll mention them again later. And I haven't seen season 16 or 17. 17 is going to be the next one I watch. I'm probably going to watch an episode of it after I record this. So, yeah. But we're going to go to Unfinished Business, which is the second returnee season, but the first returnee season I'm going to be talking about. So, We got Jet and Cord, Flytime and Big Easy, Jamie and Cara. Actually, no, Jamie and Cara were early boots. Never mind, scratch them out. But I'm happy we got to see them. So Zeb and Justin for sure. Flytime and Big Easy. Um, Jet and Cord I really liked on there. Trying to remember. Gary and Mallory were cool. I think mainly just these three teams. Yeah, because I know Margie and Luke were on it, but they have really early boots, so I can't really say much about them. Jamie and Cara also got early boots, so bummer. But Flying Time Big Easy, funny, entertaining, and more cutthroat than the last season they competed on. U-turning Jet and Corden and putting them out of the game. And they actually got second place. They made it further than they did the first time, which I was happy to see. I really was rooting for them to win, though. I was like, God effing dang it, man. I wanted them to win. I didn't want Keisha and Jen to win because they were more boring on this season than they were last season. And they're probably the most boring team that could have won the Amazing Race that season, apart from maybe Chris and Amanda or Ron and Christina. But that's beside the point. They were probably the most boring team to win out of the final three. I really wish it was the Harlem Globetrotters. Really did. Really did. Honorable mention, this is probably the only honorable mention, but Kent and Vixen were hilarious and a mess to watch this season. They somehow went in the wrong direction for hours, missed the flight, was hours behind the team, and they somehow still got on the flight and caught up until they left their fanny bag on the Ferris wheel thing they were riding, and they had to go back and get it and be even more far behind. And luckily for them, it was a non-elimination leg. They did the speed bump, did the roadblock detour, and managed to catch up and survive all the way up to 5th place because of a penalty that they didn't read the clue correctly. Otherwise, they would have been in the final 4. It was chaotic for them this season, but it's such an interesting story. You have to check it out if you haven't seen that season. It's literally it's whatever what I'm saying right now sounds made up, but it's true. It's true. But next we got Jet and Cord, Cowboys. Yeehaw! These two are dominant, and they had a rough start to the race, but quickly made up time. And I don't know if they got in first place, but I do remember really liking them in Unfinished Business. It really does suck seeing Flytime Big Easy putting them out because I really liked both teams. I didn't want either of them to go out. But Jet and Cord got 6th place. I was happy to see them. And they do return from a future season that I'll be talking about. I might have to make this video into 2 parts, so just bear with me there. But yeah. And next we got Zeb and Justin, who I mentioned before. And these two, I am so happy they actually got a chance because they proved that they were good Amazing Racers. They got all the way to the 4th place, and they were robbed, and seeing them go sucked because my dream final 3 out of the final 4 was for Keisha and Jenna being eliminated because, well, I liked Zeb and Justin more than them, and they brought more to the season. They were entertaining and fun to watch, and they were really good racers. And to know how well they did just to be just short and seeing their faces like upset and stuff when they were so happy pretty much the whole season, it touches you. It touches you and it hurts. But I'm happy we got to see them again. It's probably the last time I'll see them, but I'm happy what we got with them. So yeah, that's pretty much it for Unfinished Business. So we went on to season 19 where we got maybe one team we talk about here, and that is the snowboarders, Andy and Tommy. Those two made originally, like, I still think they do have the most first places in Amazing Race, like, not making it to the final 3. I think they got the most first places without making it to the final 3 in Amazing Race history. Could be wrong about that. Fact check me if I'm wrong. But these two were dominant, to say the least. And trying to remember How many legs they got saved on? Because they read the clue. One, two, I think 3 legs. They read the clue correctly and got first place because of it. So they were really good at paying attention. Really strong runners. Really strong team. Good at working together. It just sucks they were cut just short of final 3 because the cab drivers worked together. And Andy and Tommy's were the only ones that didn't work. There's a whole compilation about them on YouTube. So go check it out. I'm not going to spend too long talking about them. So let's move on to season 20, which is probably the most drama-filled season I've seen. We got some big names though. We got Barbara and Mark, my favorite team from the season. Really rootable underdogs who really wanted the money and needed the money. And they were such fun TV. I love them so much. I really wish that stuff in All Stars didn't happen with them and all that. But I love them so much. I'm glad we got to see them all the way to Final 5. I just really wish that they did the fast forward and beat Brendan and Rachel, because that would have been hilarious to see that they lost because Rachel didn't want to shave her head. Yeah, great characters. Love them a lot. Fun TV. Now we got Art and JJ, who were villains of the show that I actually liked. I know a lot of people didn't like them, but I do like what they did with the Barbara and Mark and give them money for first place, which shows that they do have a heart, and they're just their competitive nature just puts their heart locked in a cage. But I really do think they bring a lot of drama to the season, with Mary and Jamie and Brennan and Rachel, and being more so on Vanessa and Ralph's side than everybody else. And they were strong racers as well, getting 3 first places, and they were great TV. And Vanessa and Ralph were the same too, feuding with Brendan and Rachel. Now I might have some biases on liking them because Vanessa is Tim Duncan's wife now. And so yeah, but they got 4th place, just short. But I kind of expected them to get 4th place. And then the last team I'm going to be talking about here is Brendan and Rachel, who I really did not like Rachel. Oh my god. But I have to mention them because they were great TV, great characters. And they did bring a lot of entertainment in the season. So, I mean, yeah. And I just realized I've seen a lot more seasons. So I'm going to have to cut this into 2 parts. I'll upload this one today, and the next one hopefully tomorrow. If not, then the next day after tomorrow. But the last season we're going to talk about is season 21, because there are a lot of teams here, which is why I mentioned that. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. Okay. First off, my favorite team, the Chippendales. I love them, bro. Oh, I was so upset when they didn't win. They got 2nd place, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. They were my favorite team. I loved what they were doing with the racing for their dad and giving the money to dad and say, here, Dad, you don't have to work anymore, because his dad had cancer, and it was really rough for them. And they actually almost got eliminated on the first leg, getting 2nd to last. I was like, no way. It was really a foot race to the pit stop where they beat out the Lumberjacks, Rob and Sheila. Rest in peace, Sheila, by the way. And it was rough to see them lose, but I'm happy that they won the car and some money for their fathers, and they were just inspirational. Everyone was rooting for them to win pretty much. Because of their story, they needed the money the most, and they were great characters as well, entertaining as heck. And I was shocked when they didn't return for the All-Star season, which I'm gonna be making my own All-Star season cast, the 2nd one, about how I wanted to see it. And yeah, pretty much Chippendale is my favorite team. I explained all that stuff. Next up, we got Natalie and Nadia, the twinnies, who were chaos, but also changed race history, where they had the idea of wasting U-turn. Okay, so bear with me here with this example. So imagine you U-turn. If I U-turn Freddy Krueger, he was my enemy, right? So I'm ahead of him. I U-turn him. And I put myself as the one who U-turned, and Savage gets there next, and U-turns me. But if you pass the U-turn, you don't have to go back and do the detour. So Freddy is pretty much screwed in that sense, and that's what the 20s did. That's what the 20s did. And it changed history because a lot of teams utilize this now and thought, long ahead with alliances and stuff, that this would be a good idea to do. So, and they were good TV. Though I didn't like when they stole the money from James and Abba and stuff. And the Abby and Ryan situation was a little funny, I guess. Though it was kind of awkward to watch at times, but yeah. Next up, we got James and Abba, the Rockers, and they had the same exact thing happen to them as Evan and Justin, where they lost their passport in a taxi car in the city or something. And it was a really weird non-elimination leg because they showed up like at least 12 hours ahead of two other teams because they got on a good flight along with the Chippendales, the 20s, and Texas. We're going to get to Texas soon. But they lost their passport and they couldn't find it, and it was a non-elimination leg. So Phil said, find your passport, and if you can, check back in and you can continue racing. And there will be a speed bump ahead, yada, yada, yada. They never did find their passport, so it was a really predictable episode after seeing all of them just breeze by James and Abba, and they just got completely screwed over because of it. And they deserve a second chance, to be honest, because it was the same thing that happened with Jeff and Justin, and a lot of people like the Rockers. I mean, they were cool, calm, and they brought some TV. So yeah. Next up, we got Team Texas, Trey and Lexi, who were likable and worked with Chippendales, but they also stole money or were involved in that with Natalie and Nadia, which is like, oh man, but like they were humble, they were cool, they hated doing the thing with Abby and Ryan and following up with the plan. They were heroes. They got third place, which I really didn't mind them getting third because they were only going to use it to get married, in which they did in 2010 or 2012 or 13, one of the two. But I mean, yeah, they're cool, but not as much as I like James and Abba and the Chippendales. So, yeah. Next, we got Gary and Will. My favorite, like, bad, amazing race teams. They were so bad at the Amazing Race. They were unbelievably awful, but they were such good TV, especially the end of episode 3, racing to the pit stop in those little like bicycle taxi things. That was so funny to watch. Them passing Caitlin and Brittany, the best friends, at like the last second after doing a U-turn. I was like, oh my god, like this team, like they were just barely getting it across, and they were such fun characters, such good TV. I was like, even when they got eliminated when I knew they weren't gonna win, I was like, oh my god, no, they were such good TV. Like I would have preferred if they got farther than like Rob and Kelly or something like that. But they were such good TV. I really, really liked them a lot. Um, they were such good TV, man, and they don't get talked about too much anymore, and it's a shame because I really did like them. And then we got one more team. Trying to remember who that team was. Oh yes, the winners of the season, the most WTF winner history thingamabobber. You don't expect them to win, but they won, and that's the Beekmans, Josh and Brent. And I didn't hate them at all, even though they beat the Chippendales, which I'm still salty about. But they are possibly the most luckiest winners, but they weren't unlikable. They were likable, rootable underdogs, and they were really, really nice to Abby and Ryan and trying to make sure, make it not seem like their fault that they're behind the whole pack and all that. But I do think that there might have been some production interference in the way of how things went down, but I'm not complaining with the winners. At least they were likable winners, unlike most seasons, in my opinion, that I've seen about winners being boring and bringing nothing to the season, really. Josh Allen brought a lot to the season. It proves that do not underestimate me just because of how we look, because they beat Trey and Lexi, who got first place many times, to Chippendales, who were easily the most intimidating on the cast and got first place a couple of times. But they proved everyone wrong. And hey, good for them. Good for them. And my God, do I love season 21 so much. It's my favorite season I've seen. It's such a good season. I highly recommend it. But that's it for part one of talking about Amazing Race teams that I like. Part two is gonna come out real soon. So it's gonna talk about season 22 and onwards, as I've seen every single season since. Yeah. And I've seen season 23 all the way to season 34, all on when it was airing. So yeah, we're almost to that point. And I'll talk to you all later. Peace out. Have a good one.